get this certification. Okay, and then so that we get started slowly and we don't waste a lot of time, I would like that we begin this session, and I would like to introduce our speaker for today, who is very qualified to give this talk. Is no other person than Mr. Che Henry, who is an epidemiologist and a PhD researcher at the American University of Beirut. And yeah, we appreciate him for his time and availability to support this initiative of training or sharing his skills and expertise on systematic reviews and meta-analysis to everybody who is present here. So we are glad to have you, Mr. Henry, and to share from your expertise. So you could go ahead now and share your screen, and yeah, we are happy to listen to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope the voice is clear enough and everyone can hear me from their end.
Yes, I can hear you. I hope others too can.
Yeah, I'm just going to share.
So while Mr. Henry is sharing his screen, if you have any questions in the course of the presentation, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And also at the end of the presentation, you could also we'll have a question and answer session that you are also able to ask your questions. And also at the end of this presentation, we will send everybody an email with the PowerPoint presentation so that you could also go back to it for future learnings. And yeah, if you are interested in having like a certificate of attendance at the end of this session, please feel free at the chat, just drop your full name and your email, and then we will prepare the certificates for you at the end and send to you via email. So thank you, Mr. Henry.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, so for this session, like Mr. Jude said, we're going to be looking at an introduction to systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So this is a very broad and extensive research area, and the goal is not to make all of us experts in it, but also to give a nice introduction to the methodology involved in conducting systematic review and meta-analysis. So I hope by the end of it, you should have a basic understanding to be able to venture into performing one yourself under supervision, of course. So, but what really are systematic reviews? So a systematic review basically is a rigorous and transparent and reproductive method used to identify, select, and assess, as well as synthesize all relevant research evidence from a particular area. So it is a rigorous method, and of course, whatever you do within the framework of a systematic review has to be transparent, and someone must be able to reproduce those methods. So your reporting and your performance has to be transparent enough that someone else who is a researcher, of course, is able to look at your report, your final report, and say that, okay, this is what was done at each stage. So it's very important that your systematic review is reproducible. And of course, it's synthesizing all relevant research. That's something very important in systematic reviews as well. It has to be all available evidence on that area so that you don't get like a biased results or so. So it has to be exhaustive as much as possible. And to answer a particular question, so it has to be a very specific question. Otherwise, it's going to give you evidence that is not very helpful as well. So the goal is to answer a very specific research question. And of course, the question has to be relevant either to clinical practice or to policy, or maybe just a particular development of a new method in, or you just want to synthesize evidence about methods that are used in a particular field or so. So there are a lot of different studies coming up, different reviews coming up on focuses on methods as well. And systematic reviews and meta-analysis in particular are very crucial when it comes to evidence-based decision-making. Because if you look at the evidence triangle, they are like at the top. So they provide like the strongest evidence. And of course, it must be a systematic review and meta-analysis that is properly done. Because if there is a flaw in the conduct of your meta-analysis, then it's even worse than looking at the individual studies. So it's very crucial that you apply some rigorous methods when it comes to conducting your systematic review and meta-analysis. So they are like at the top of the evidence pyramid. Below that, you have randomized trials, and followed by cohort studies, case control, case series, and all that. So that's very important. But the question, sorry, was that a question?
Please, if you have a question, just raise your hands, or you just drop it in the chat so that we don't interrupt the speaker, and then we get back to you later. Thank you.
Okay, I can see the chat, by the way. So
yeah, I will take care of that for you.
Okay, thank you. So a lot of questions usually arise, like, is it the same thing when you talk about systematic reviews and meta-analysis? Is it the same thing? The truth is, you can perform a systematic review without a meta-analysis. So a meta-analysis is just a statistical part that is involved, or that you could perform to pull these studies together. But definitely, you can perform a systematic review without this, without combining the studies together, without pooling, basically. Okay. So if you have decided to embark into the process of doing a meta-analysis, the first thing that usually pops up that you should be looking at is, first, what do you want to answer? What research question you want to answer? What particular evidence gap you seek to fill? And that's a basic, that's the first thing. That's the very first step you have to define your research question. What research question you want to investigate? And it has to be very clear. It has to be a focused and answerable research question. So you don't embark on a journey that is not even answerable in the first place. And over the years, several frameworks have been developed in order to guide the framing of this research question. You have the PICO framework, which one of the speakers, I think, I can't remember her name.
Cynthia.
Yeah, Cynthia, exactly. Dr. Cynthia mentioned, I think 2 weeks ago or so, the last session, basically. Yeah. So she talked about the PICO framework, which is a framework to guide you in defining your research question. And there's also like the PO and the PEO, which are just like variations of the PICO framework, basically. And basically, also the PICO framework looks at, it tries to break down your research question in terms of what population is your research concerning? What population are you looking at? And then what intervention or issue are you seeking to work on? Is there a comparison group? What is the compare? What are you comparing the effect of your intervention against? For instance, if you're doing, let's say, an intervention, physical exercise or so, among youths, who are you comparing that to? When you get the outcome of your intervention in one group, who would you say, how would you compare that in terms of, let's say, the general population or another student group that were not able to, or were not part of the intervention? So there must be some group you are comparing against. So, and what is your outcome? So these are essential parts of your research question that needs to be defined early enough. And not only defining them, you also need to be clear on the scope of each part of your research question. For instance, if you're working with intervention, let's say the intervention is like a medication or so. Let's say painkiller, a painkiller medication as an intervention. What kind of painkiller? What is the dose? How often do you administer the drug or so? So these are very important things that you need to be very clear and specific from the start before you move further in performing a systematic review. So these things has to be very clear from the very start. So if you look, these are just screenshots of some systematic reviews that I've already published. Sometimes, even just from the title, you could definitely tell that, okay, this is the intervention, this is the population, this is the outcome they are looking at. Sometimes it's a bit difficult. The recommendation is that you should derive a title that clearly addresses those particular PICO components, or that contain those particular PICO components. But I'm just thinking that, okay, you listening to me now, maybe you could just read through some of these examples and think about what exactly is the population involved in this review. Let's say in number 1, who do you think this review is about, or who are the people involved in this review? It says physical activity interventions for disease-related physical and mental health during and following treatment in people with non-advanced colorectal cancer. So, of course, it says that clearly, people with non-advanced colorectal cancer. It could also go in the methods now, and you can specify, okay, no, in that population, you want to work only on adults 18 and above. You could say, okay, maybe if this is a disease that affects children as well, you want to focus on just children, depending on where there is a lack of evidence. If you look at the second one, it says omega-3 fatty acid for treatment of dementia. The intervention is very clear, omega-3 fatty acids. The disease gives it out. It gives out the population. Dementia, it's a disease or a condition of the older population. So of course it's clearer in a sense who the population is on. Definitely, if you go deeper into the review, there might be some restriction when it comes to the age to make the review more specific. It could say, let's say, older adults aged 60 and above. So that's something you can also specify a bit more in the methods. This particular research question, I think we'll see it later on again as we proceed. Okay, so like I mentioned before, the first step is to define all the components of your research question, as well as the scope. Who is the population, the gender, the age group, even the race. It could be that your systematic review is just among African Americans. It could just be among persons in Cameroon, or maybe youths in Cameroon. It could be people attending a church service. That's a weird example, but you get what I mean. You have to specify. You have to be very specific when it comes to defining your research question. What is the population? The intervention, if it's physical activity, what is the frequency of the activity? When you go out for this activity, how long normally do you spend? What is the intensity? Is it like a light walking? Is it jogging? Is it like intense activity? You have to be specific. If it's medication, what is the dose? What is the route of administration? Is it venous? Is it intramuscular? So all those specific aspects, they influence your outcome in different ways. If you administer a drug intravenously, the speed at which it enters the system is different from when you administer your drug intramuscular. So These are very important aspects that needs to be considered when you're defining your research question, because of course they affect the outcome. Then your comparator, are you comparing the intervention against a placebo? I understand that everyone here knows what a placebo is. Are you comparing the intervention against a standard care or no care at all? Or if you're looking at exposures, are you comparing your exposure against those who are not exposed or so? So these are very things that needs to be specified, to be clear from the onset. If you're looking at the outcome, how was the outcome measured? What is the severity of the outcome? For instance, if your outcome is a disease occurrence, what is the severity? Does it matter in your systematic review? So those are things that you need to set. You need to set it clear from the beginning before even venturing to anything else. Okay. So after that, I think the very next step is to be able to set some inclusion and exclusion criteria. Basically, these are criteria that guide you on what article to include in your systematic review. And if you, in the first step, if you have very well-defined PICO components, then it becomes very easy to set, clear inclusion and exclusion criteria. Think about the population you want, the intervention, the comparator, the outcome, which we talked about already. And also the other things that you might be interested in is also like the study design. Are you only interested about randomized trials, or are you interested about also non-randomized trials and interventions, and so even observational studies looking at different interventions? Are you looking at cohort only? Are you looking at case control or cross-sectional studies? These are very important. If, for instance, you are interested in synthesizing evidence on the incidence of a particular disease or so, then that limits you on the type of study design you might be interested in, because we understand that incidence cannot be obtained from cross-sectional studies. Then it limits you now to studies with longitudinal design. So these are things that are very important and crucial to address from the beginning. You might also say, okay, I want to limit my systematic review to only peer-reviewed publications. You want to synthesize only evidence that other scholars have visited, that, okay, this is good for public consumption, as opposed to synthesizing gray literature, which, of course, it is advised that you be comprehensive as possible, but one of the key aspects of a systematic review is to be for your methods to be reproducible. So no matter the decision you make, it is very essential that you state them clearly so that someone else who might be interested in your work can reproduce those same methods. You might also be interested in just publications from a particular year onward. For instance, if you're looking at particular diseases like COVID-19, for instance, you're sure that you don't need any articles that are from 2014, for instance, especially if you're looking at the effect on population, because you know that it became an issue from the year 2019. So these are things that you need to consider also when you're setting your inclusion and exclusion criteria. And by the time you're done with that, then you need to sit back now and re-examine yourself. I'm like, okay, what you need to do your due diligence. So are you sure this is a question that you want to answer? Are you sure that this is something that is of importance to either policy or to the larger population? Is this an important question to even venture into? And also, one crucial aspect is to avoid is duplication of effort, because it's a very tedious process. You don't want to duplicate reviews that have already been done by others. So the first thing you do from that step is you already have a question you are interested in. You have a clear inclusion criteria, what you want to include in your review. you have to check to be sure that there is no review ongoing that answers that particular question, or maybe something published just recently. So you can check Prospero, you can check Campbell collaboration, you can check Cochrane library, and so just to be sure that, okay, there is no already registered review that is ongoing on the same question that you are interested in, so that you don't duplicate efforts as well, of course. Sometimes you might see something very similar, and it might prompt you to go back to your review and make some adjustments to answer another gap that exists, taking into consideration the fact that your specific question is being answered currently. Maybe the review is not published yet or so. So these are things that are very important. You don't need to duplicate what someone else is doing currently. Or maybe if you feel like, okay, they answer your question and maybe something very, very small that does not warrant a new study, you could contact the authors that, okay, you have this interesting addition, and maybe they might be interested. That's a very hard thing to do, but someone might just be interested to get your own take, to add something to their ongoing work. Okay. When you have done that and you're sure that, okay, yes, your question needs to be answered, you need a systematic review and meta-analysis, then think about building a group or a team to undertake that work. Think about, you need to envisage or visualize the entire project, what you will need, the expertise you will need to complement what you already have in order to see the work through. So think about someone who knows the subject very well, the disease you're trying to investigate, the exposure or intervention you're trying to work on, someone who knows the population. Maybe if you're talking about older adults or children below a certain age, maybe someone who has some knowledge on how this population interact, how the intervention might affect them, and all that could be someone very good to add to your team. You also need a statistician if you envisage performing a meta-analysis. Definitely, you need someone with strong expertise in meta-analysis. You definitely need a methodologist in terms of someone who has a huge understanding or a big understanding in terms of the methods that are applicable to systematic reviews that could guide you through the process. And when you have that set, then you go ahead now to design your sales strategy. It's important you check that, okay, no other review, and make all to be certain about your research question before you go on to design a sales strategy, because you don't want to go on to design something and then you have to come back now and change it. So it's important that your inclusion and exclusion criteria are set, your research question is set before you proceed to design a sales strategy. And the best approach to this is that try to break up your research question into the PICO components, I would say, into key concepts that are necessary to answer that particular question. So if you take your research question, there must be some key concepts there that you need to answer that particular question. Then, depending on the field in which you're in, some databases might be more important to look at. So there's Medline, Embase, PubMed, CINAHL, which is like very popular for nursing related or psychology related kind of topics. There's also PsycInfo, which is psychology related. So depending on what kind of research area you're into, it will definitely guide you what databases to choose. So when you have been able to break down your research question into key components, the next step is to identify appropriate keywords that describe that aspect. For instance, if you're working with population, you're working with children. You know, you can have a child, you can have children, you can have kids, you have under age. You can have 0 to 5. You can have words like school-going children. So there are different variations, and also you could use some databases to help you with getting some of those key terms as well. When you get those key terms, there are maybe subject headings called a mesh, which you can get also from like PubMed and Medline or so. So there might be some mesh. These are just like umbrella headings that are specific to particular research areas. So if you get those together, you can identify synonyms to those keywords that you have looked at, and also variation in each of the terms. Woman, women. So all those, some people might write a paper that in the entire paper they are referring to as women. There is no singular. So if you put just woman, it might miss that particular paper. So you have to put variations in your keywords as well. And then use these databases. They might, they have differences, slight differences in how you write the search terms. So you have to make sure that you're using appropriate syntax to be able to write your search terms. Use Boolean operators to combine them together. You evaluate your initial result, and then you test, and then you reiterate. So you have to, it's not a one-time process. It's not like, okay, I have done this and then that is it. You do that, you check the results. Do they make sense? Do they capture what it's supposed to be capturing? Is it sensitive enough? Is it specific enough? Sometimes you do, and this is a decision you can make. You can decide that, okay, I want my search strategy to be just very sensitive to catch anything that is available on the topic. And by doing so, you also run the risk of catching things that are not important for the topic as well. Or you could decide that you want very specific. So you get things that are very, very specific to the topic, or they are very related articles. And you also run the risk of losing some articles that are important as well. So it's always like, back and forth process, looking for the best combination of sensitivity and specificity as well. So it's you have to reiterate, you have to go back and adjust things and come back. Okay, so let's take an example. So one thing for sure that needs to be mentioned, that when you're designing your search strategy and you're using Boolean operators, what you do is you combine aspects of the same Pico component together with or. So Boolean operators are basically or, and those kind of combinations. So things that are within the same Pico component, you have to combine them together with or, and those that are between, to combine more components together, you can use and, depending on what you want to capture. So you have to get an understanding of what you want to capture as well. So let's come back to this article, which we have seen before. We talked about omega-3 fatty acids for the treatment of dementia. So you have to look for words that, reflect omega-3. You don't want all fatty acids. You are very specific to omega-3. So you could have omega and a -3. You could have omega space 3. You could have N -3. So those are N3. You can have the sign itself. You could have different variations. And since if you look at this search strategy, you see that most of them are combined with quotation marks. If you are using statements or phrase searching, if you're searching a phrase, you have to put them in quotation marks. What that does is that it captures articles that have those words in that order. So article that has omega-3 fatty acid, it will capture it. Article that has omega space 3 space fatty acid, it will capture it like that. So it's very important to understand exactly what what you're doing and what you want. You could also use like truncation. If you look under dementia, you see dement and then a star. So what that does is that it captures things that words that have dement. It could be dementia, it could be demensive. So those kind of it picks those variations of words. Cognitive impairment, cognitive impaired. So those kind of variations, you can use a star to refer to that. You could also use proximity operators. For instance, if you want two words must be close to each other, you could say you want articles that mention cognitive and then in the neighborhood of impairment. So cognitive must be, let's say, maybe just two words in between at most, and then you have impairment. So you, depending on what you want, you could adjust this number here. And of course, again, different databases have different ways of showing proximity operators. So these are things that you really need to consider when you're developing your search strategy. So these are just like I took this from an article. This is the reference down here. You can access that and read and see. So this is just like different databases and how they use different aspects to develop their search strategy. Because I don't have so much time, I'm just going to go directly. I plan on going to Medline and showing you how you can actually get synonyms of words, but of course that you can get maybe online. You can find that information online as well. So when you have developed your search, at least for one database, you have to register your protocol. This is the only thing that tells others that, oh yes, I have this research ongoing. I have this research that is ongoing. You don't need to do this again. I got this covered, basically. This is the only thing. So if you have everything set up, you don't register it, nobody knows that you're doing this systematic review, except your family members and team, maybe members of your team. Nobody else knows that. So it's very important that you register your protocol and let others know that, okay, yes, this is a research I'm undertaking, and you should put your effort somewhere else. I got this covered. So you can register your research on Prospero. I know Campbell Collaboration, they also register protocols. Cochrane also does that. If you want your research to be published faster, definitely you should avoid Cochrane, because it's a whole consortium. It takes more time. The process takes longer. Even Campbell Collaborations, it takes longer to get things out. But Prospero, as an individual, you can go ahead and register your protocol there. And some people go ahead to publish their protocol on in a peer review journal to even increase the aspect of reproducibility and just putting your science out there. So that's also a possibility. There are several journals that do publish protocols. So you could check BMJ. I know I published one protocol in BMJ Open before, and there are also BMC Systematic Review, I think, will publish a protocol also. So this is something to keep an eye on if you're interested in publishing your protocol. Okay, so after you publish your protocol, perform your search, you have to perform the search similarly, the same way across databases. Of course, they have different syntax, but you have to make sure that you at least have synonyms of or the same words, or at least the nearest synonyms in the databases also. So you make sure that you are capturing the same thing across all databases. And When you do that, download the search from all the databases you have in your systematic review. You have two options at this point. One is to import them into a reference manager, remove duplicates, and then you can export them for screening. I know some people use reference managers like EndNote for screening. I don't know how that works. Some people use Excel. I don't know how that works, but I know it exists and I know people use it. The second option is something I have used before, and it's something which is becoming more popular, and I would encourage you to do. So you can either you import directly into a screening software that has the ability to detect duplicates, like Ryan and Covidence. So you can detect duplicates there, take them out, screen the articles up till full text stage there, and then you can extract outside. Covidence, for instance, you could extract your data inside Covidence. It is built to accommodate that possibility. But Ryan, no, I don't think Ryan is able to. You are able to extract data using Ryan, except this is an update that came within the last few, let's say 3 months. Maybe I'm not sure. But one good thing about Ryan as well, that I think they paid, it's free. Ryan is free. Everything you need to be able to do, you can do it free. But if you want to take it up a notch, you can actually pay for a premium version that allows you to use machine learning or AI technology to be able to easily predict which articles are most important. You know, if that's something interesting to you, to help in the screening. And also, yeah, so these are options that are available. You could also have a blend of both options. You could import them into a reference manager, remove duplicates, export them in, and then import into Ryan, and you screen from there. So the screening of the articles usually, I don't know, most of you probably, if you have been involved in one before, it's basically it's easy, but you need a good understanding of your research question and your inclusion and exclusion criteria, because that's basically what you use in screening the titles and abstract. And from there, you move now to the full text. You need to seriously consider reviewing your inclusion and exclusion criteria over and over again, so that you are sure that you are not excluding articles that are important to your review. And in this stage, as well as the data extraction, it's advisable to do them in duplicate. So basically, you are screening the same article with someone else independently, and then later on, someone, maybe a third person, will come now and look at the two screening and say, okay, maybe there is a conflict here. You said we should include this article. This other person said exclude. And you have to come now and discuss, okay, why did you exclude the article? What is that thing that made you think that the article is not eligible to be included? So this discussion needs to always happen. In Ryan, the software will clearly indicate to you, it would let you know that, okay, these are, you have, let's say, 4 duplicates, 4 conflicts, that you can easily just go to that icon and you click there, and then you have a meeting between the people who screen that particular article. And prior to this stage, you have to decide how you want to resolve disagreements. Do you want it to just be between the people who screen the article? Do you need a third reviewer? So these methods need to be clear in your protocol as well, how you want to resolve these disagreements that arise in the screening and extraction phase. When you're done you have screened all the full text of the articles that you include. So at the full text stage, articles that you include, it's advisable that you screen the references as well. There might be some articles that you missed at the search stage that are good articles to include in your review. So it's always good to check the references of your included studies. The extraction phase, you could use, like I said before, you could use Covidence if you have access to it. It is expensive, but if you have access, it could be good for you. There are data extraction templates available online that you could use as well. You could develop your own to suit your need. So that's something of interest too. Okay, before you proceed to, you have extracted the data, you have done all the other steps. You need to check the quality of the included studies. It's very important. Before you proceed to do a meta-analysis, you need to be sure what you're putting together. Because these studies, they really vary. They vary a lot in their quality, and as such, you need to be sure that, okay, you are pulling studies that are comparable together in terms of the quality as well. Some studies are very so much biased that you cannot, pull them together with other studies. So it's important that you assess the quality of your included studies before going to pulling your studies together, or before conducting a meta-analysis. And of course, there are so many risks of bias assessment tools that are available, and they cover, from the design to the analysis to the reporting. And usually they cover domains like confounding. Did the authors adjust for appropriate number of confounders or recognize confounders in that research question? How was the intervention classified? Is there anything about misclassification of treatment and all that? Is there any selection bias? So these are things that you need to assess in each of the included studies. Is there missing data? Is there a possibility that data was omitted? Is there selective reporting? Did they report only the positive or the significant results? Did they just, all these aspects are very important that you think about. Of course, it's very, this part of the work is subjective to an extent, but you have to go into it with with a tool bag of studies of knowledge you've gained over the years, in epidemiology, statistics, subject matter knowledge and all that. So you have to go in here, and judge these articles based on what is presented before you. And of course, like I mentioned, there are so many tools that you can use. There is the Newcastle and Ottawa scale that is available for non-randomized studies, and this one is very important. If very nice if you are someone who likes star-based methods in doing things. You have Cochrane publishes a lot of different tools. So if you check their website, you can find different risk of bias tools that are available. You have those for randomized studies, you have those for non-randomized studies, and so. And then you can also check Johanna Briggs Institute. They have different tools that are available for randomized studies, cohort studies, case control, cross-sectional studies, and even those that are used to assess risks of bias in systematic reviews as well. So there are other types of reviews that are systematic review of reviews. So those tools are available. I have added the links here. You can go in and check and feed your eyes, and maybe you might be interested or you might be in need of using one of those tools. And when this is done, then you want to start synthesizing your results. And of course, no matter what you're doing, if it's a meta-analysis or just a simple systematic review, of course, you need to describe the process you use to arrive to this step. So you use a Prisma flow diagram. I don't have a sample here, but it's everywhere online, and I'm sure most of us know it already. All your results, definitely you need a narrative synthesis of the studies that you've included in your study, as well as a very big decision to decide if just a narrative synthesis is necessary or you want to perform a meta-analysis. Now, this is a decision that is very crucial, and it might take a couple of meetings to with your collaborators to come to that decision. So are the studies similar enough in terms of the design, in terms of the measurement of the exposure, measurement of the outcome, the statistical approach used, the population, but also, does it really make sense to combine these studies together? When you combine them together, are you able to interpret it? Is it even important clinically, or in terms of policy, or in terms of method development or so? Is it something important to pull together? So these are considerations that you have to take into account when deciding if you want to do a meta-analysis or not. And if your answer to this consideration is yes, a meta-analysis is important, then you ask yourself, but what exactly is a meta-analysis even? And basically, it's just you combining results from different studies into one estimate. So you're combining results from two or more studies to provide a more precise estimate of your intervention or your exposure. And it is particularly important in cases where you also have controversies from different studies. Some are saying that, oh, physical exercise it protects you from stroke. Some other studies are saying, oh, physical exercise is a risk factor for stroke. So it can help you to resolve those kind of controversies. But mind you, if in the literature you have the controversies are too much, so let's say half of the studies say they are protective, half of the studies says they are a harm, then it might be more important to step back and look at the evidence and judge the evidence again before even performing a meta-analysis. And most importantly, rigorousness is very essential, because a poorly conducted meta-analysis is even worse than the individual studies, because people have so much hope and so much trust in the meta-analysis that if you provide a biased estimate, you have basically shifted the knowledge base. You have confused the entire population or so. So it's very important that you are rigorous in your meta-analysis, and everything that is done is presented, in order to permit reproducibility. So you have cleared that up. You're certain that you want to perform a meta-analysis. Definitely, you need the information that is necessary. You need the sample size of the studies. You need the effect estimate. You need the confidence intervals, so the standard error. You need other data that could be important. For instance, maybe you might be interested in maybe what is available is the mean and standard deviation, depending on what kind of outcome you have. If it's a continuous outcome, definitely you might be interested in looking at the mean, standard deviation, and also the number of events in each group. How many people were exposed that got the outcome? How many people were exposed that did not get the outcome? So basically, a 2x2 table of your study is an essential part to be able to do a meta-analysis, as well as this other information that you see here. You need to identify the studies with the estimates as well. Okay. We started a bit late, but I am hoping to finish soon, and then we can have time to discuss. I know it's a 1 hour session, but it's a big topic as well.
I added a few minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I know 1 hour would be enough. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe if we can have like 10 more minutes addition to your time, then we do 10 minutes or 15 minutes discussion, question and answer. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That works with me.
Okay.
So now you have all the data. You are certain that meta-analysis is essential. Everything you have the data, and also you have verified the accuracy of the data, which should be done in the extraction phase. You are sure that this data is correct, and it's accurate basically. The next question you have to decide is, what kind of meta-analysis do you want to do? Do you want to do a fixed effect meta-analysis or a random effect meta-analysis? Basically, fixed effect meta-analysis just assumes that the intervention effects are the same across the studies, which is a bit too strong, given that generally studies will differ from each other, even at some point. So studies cannot just be the same, even if the population that is included, the sample size, there are a lot of different things that are different between studies. So this is a very strong assumption that should be taken under strong consideration or rationale for your study. But the other option is random effects model, which assume already that, yes, these studies differ in one way or the other. And the effects that your intervention has, they all are like, they form like a random distribution. So the true effect is not one that of one study, but they all are like, they form a random distribution. So that is very important in because it accepts that there is heterogeneity in the studies as well. So that's a very good thing to a more relaxed model of choice. So yes. So that when it's decided, you can now go ahead now to do your forest plots. Of course, most of us, we have seen a forest plot before. We have maybe interpreted a forest plot before. But yes, you can now go ahead to generate your forest plot. And also depending on the type of effect measure that you're using, is it a risk difference, is it odds ratio, is it risk ratio, that will determine what you have as the null value here. So you'll see some meta-analysis, you have 0 here. You see others, you have 1. So depending on the measure of association that you're using, if you're using odds ratio, risk ratio, you will have 1 here. If you're using mean difference, risk difference, you will have a 0. So yeah, your meta-analysis results are usually presented in the form of a forest plot, and you'll see that a lot in every meta-analysis basically. And I have another example here. Okay, so we have talked about the fact that studies differ in terms of the population, in terms of the analysis, in terms of the methods, the design. So all those variations between studies is referred to as heterogeneity, and can be classified, in basically 3 common types. You have statistical heterogeneity, which is basically differences in the estimated effects across studies. So some report an odds ratio of 1.0, some report 2.4. So that is an indication of statistical heterogeneity. And usually it's as a result of clinical heterogeneity and methodological heterogeneity. Clinical heterogeneity is basically differences in the participant characteristics, also outcomes that are measured. And in terms of studies can also differ based on the methods that are used. What studies design do the studies use? How was the outcome measured? How was the data analyzed? What approach was used in terms of confounding adjustment? Are you adjusting strictly using what definition are you using of a confounder? Yeah, so that will affect the amount of will influence the number of covariates and the type of covariate that you include in your analysis as well, and that will influence the effect size that is observed at the end of your analysis. So it is very important that you explore the causes of heterogeneity and also put into action strategies to resolve that heterogeneity. It is more important to present evidence of very similar studies that can be is very strong, could mean a lot, than to just combine like very unrelated, maybe not unrelated, but studies that differ to a large extent, just combine them together. So this is something very important to think about when you're performing your meta-analysis. And of course, there are other methods as well to deal with heterogeneity. You could, you could even not do a meta-analysis if it's too high. If there is so much heterogeneity, you could decide not to do a meta-analysis. This is not advisable, because heterogeneity is not something against you. It's not a bad thing. Of course, the studies differ. You already know from the start that the studies are not exactly the same. That's why you're even choosing a random effect model anyways. But it's important that you explore them and see what is causing high heterogeneity and how you can resolve that. Okay. Another thing is missing information. So there is missing data when it comes to systematic review and meta-analysis as well. And it could arise from several different ways. You could have missing data from the individual studies, which of course raises issues about bias. Could the missing data generate some selection bias in the individual studies? This is something you should be able to assess at the level of the risk of bias assessment as well. Are there studies? Are you missing some studies? Why is that? Is it that maybe studies that do not show a positive effect or a significant p-value were not published, were not even submitted for publication? Was your search not good enough? So these are things that you need to think about. Was there any issue with measurement of particular outcomes? Were they ignored? Were they not reported because maybe they were not significant? So this is something you need to think about when you have gotten to the point where you're doing your meta-analysis. Also have to think about, okay, what could be, is there a possibility that there is missing data in my meta-analysis? And of course, the most common type of missing data in this kind of design is publication bias, which there are so many different methods. You can use a formal statistical tests that are available. You could use funnel plot or so. So there are different ways to either visually or to use hypothesis test to test if there is possibility of publication bias. So this is a consideration that you have to make by the end of your meta-analysis. So when you have done all your necessary steps, you have pulled your studies together, now you have to present the results to those that are interested in your findings. There are many people. It could be researchers, it could be policymakers, it could be maybe the community also, the hospital, of course. So you have to present your findings as well as your methods as clearly as possible, that facilitate people to understand, first of all, what your results mean and what your findings are, but also to facilitate being reproduced. So an important aspect of systematic review is that it is a reproducible method, if we go back to the definition from the first slide. So it's very important that your reporting is clear enough and is reproducible, and of course that you have followed rigorous methods. And of course, if you intend to publish a systematic review in peer-reviewed journals, then usually you are advised to follow a reporting guidelines. It could be MOOS, it could be PRISMA guidelines, which is preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And usually, if you're submitting to a journal, they will ask you for a checklist. So to clearly say that, okay, on page 1, I have the inclusion and exclusion criteria. No, maybe the objective on page 1. On page 2, I have inclusion and exclusion criteria. On page 3 or page 2 still, I have detailed how the screening was done and data extraction. I have mentioned in my analysis if a subgroup analysis was done, if a sensitivity analysis was done. So basically, the checklist just guides you for you to report your analysis in as much detail that allows someone to easily comprehend what they have in front of them. And of course, like I mentioned already, there are guidelines for that, which you can easily get online to help you do that. I have included some references for you if you're interested in, getting into systematic reviews and meta-analysis. You have the Cochrane handbook here, which is, of course, the gold standard, I would say, when it comes to systematic review and meta-analysis methods. You have this Prisma statement, which is very important, especially for someone who is starting systematic reviews. Especially, I will ask you to go directly to the explanation, because it's very detailed. This is an article that is almost 40 pages. It details what is expected, what you expect to report, or the preferred methods in each specific aspect of your systematic review. Every stage, it tells you what is expected of you, what you need to report, what you need to think about, and all that. So it's just an expansion of the Prisma checklist, Prisma statement. It gives you more explanation why some things are done, why they're not done the other way, and also how best you can report them. And also, if you check, there is this article we've come across more than twice, the omega-3 fatty acid and dementia. I've included the link here in case you want to go in and also just verify. One thing I forgot to mention was that the search strategy which I included for this research question was something that I just came up with for the purpose of learning. So one thing you could do is go to this article and see how their search strategy differs from what I have, just to let you know that you could be answering the same questions, but the search strategy might be different. Now, the question is, which one is more efficient? Which one is more is preferable? Somebody may have a search strategy of 2 pages. Someone may just have a few lines, but achieve the same results. So that's something to check out if you're interested. And then I've added a fun article as well, 24 steps guide on how to design, conduct, and successfully publish a systematic review and meta-analysis. This article goes into like each step. It's not very detailed, and I believe there are so many things which I have mentioned here that are not part of that article, of course, because I've read it or maybe skimmed through it. It is a very good article to guide you along the way if you are interested to undertake a systematic review. So yes, if there is anything else, there's so much resources online that can also help you in the process. And of course, if you are very new to it, it's very important that you find a team that is very complementary and someone who is knowledgeable in these methods that can guide you through. I think that is my time, a bit more than my time, but thank you all very much for your time and for sharing this session with me. I will stop sharing and just we can discuss a bit more now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. That was an excellent presentation. And I know a lot of reactions will come up. Many people really enjoyed the sessions. I particularly have learned a lot, and I think you were the right person for this presentation because you have a lot of experience and knowledge about this. So before you go into the questions, maybe you get a glass of water and then you drink, and then we have a short discussion. And I will just read out some of the questions which were already asked on the chat.
Okay.
And maybe if any other person has another question, you could just raise up your hand and then you you ask your questions. And please be very brief, and then so the speaker can also be brief with the responses, then we are also on time. So the first question was, I would like to know which of the study is more valuable. Is it a systematic review or a meta-analysis, and how can I differentiate between them?
Yes, so I wouldn't say one is more valuable than the other. I mean, to do a meta-analysis, you need a systematic review. So it's part of the process to get to a meta-analysis. But sometimes pulling those studies doesn't make sense, and it's not necessary. So meta-analysis is just the quantitative part of systematic reviews. I don't know if that is clear enough, but to tell you that, okay, no, one is more important, I wouldn't want to make that statement. But yes, if you have a well-conducted meta-analysis, of course, it's at that top because it provides, more precise estimates of the intervention or exposure. But sometimes they are not. It is not a must to do it, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then so it means in a nutshell, like the meta-analysis is more important when you want to look at studies that are having kind of, in terms of their methodologies, really identical methodologies, and they are not it's not like a mixture. But again, you said it's difficult to have studies with identical, everything being identical in the methodology. So you have to find a way to, go around it.
Exactly. You have to make that judgment if a meta-analysis is really required for that particular at that particular time or for that particular research question. Judging on how similar the studies are, in terms of the measurement of the different studies, the population, does it really make sense to pull them together? How would you interpret them? For instance, if you take, let's say, depression in among children, and then you combine with studies depression among older adults, okay, it will give you a general population estimate of, let's say, the prevalence of depression. But those two populations, they have different experiences. So it will give you an estimate, but interpreting in the context of the population and having an application of applying that estimate might become a bit difficult, because those different populations, they have different experiences. It could, what could be prompting them to get into a depressed state could be, they are entirely different. So sometimes you just need to think about what you're generating and if this makes sense either clinically or policy wise. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for your response. So the other question is, for systematic review to be reproducible, do we use tools like Ryan to conduct the article selection? I also know of registering protocol to Prospero. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, do you understand the question? If not, Brenda, could you maybe, if you understand?
Yes, I do understand that, and I mentioned that already in the presentation. That of course, yes, you need. Ryan just facilitates, the screening process, but also it now permits you to generate the Prisma flowchart directly from Ryan. So it's a clear way to show that, okay, yes, the chart shows what was done. So it's a way to show that it's reproducible. Also, you registering your systematic review shows that, okay, when you report the final, when you provide the final report, someone can compare with what you plan to do and what you did, to be sure that, okay, yes, they are similar. Of course, things may change. You might make new decisions while doing the review, and that you can always amend your protocol or even indicate in your final manuscript that, okay, these are amendments that were done during the process of performing the systematic review. So yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and then this follows up with the next question. It's similar, like, if you don't register the protocol, does this reduce the credibility of your work? And if you also do not follow, because all follow the steps in the order which you presented, maybe you do one before the other, does that
Mm.
affect the credibility, and like what would you recommend? Can you jump one and like what can you?
Uh, so let me start from the first question. Does it influence the credibility? Personally, I would say yes.
Mhm.
Why didn't you register? It's not a hard process. Why
Process.
did you not register it?
Mhm.
So it start raises questions. Now, when it comes to, for instance, if someone is doing a review of systematic reviews and
Yeah.
they see that you did not register your protocol, it raises, those are concerns, of course. Uh, in terms of following the steps, there are some things that you can change the order. But what I have presented based on my experience are like the
Standard.
the best order
Yeah.
that will save you time. Uh, for instance, if you go on to perform like the search for your systematic review without actually uh, being sure that they capture what you want, you're going to do it again.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you publish a faulty study, right?
Mhm.
So what I have put together is what I believe from my experience is like the best methods, the best steps to take to save you time and also to yield the results you desire.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And the last question I have is, what can you say about using AI tools to facilitate some processes, e.g., screening? Any recommendations for best practices?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a crucial question in this era. But I would say you have to be very careful when you're using AI in any form in research. When it comes to systematic reviews in particular, I would not, I would never leave the work to AI alone.
Mm.
Now, based on how that your timeline uh, of doing things and maybe how soon you need your uh, each process to go, I might use the AI inbuilt in Ryan, for instance, to classify my articles based on based on like how they meet the inclusion criteria. So articles that are up are those that the AI tells me that this, yes, of course, these are articles that are 100% going to be included. Now I can screen those and get an overview of how the evidence is and maybe proceed to start preparing myself for the next steps. If maybe I want to perform a meta-analysis or so, but I would not rely on the judgment of AI alone. It can facilitate you in any way you want to, but do not rely on it alone. Yeah.
Okay. The last question, sorry. How, when you're doing the screening, like, do you screen like the entire, like what are the best practices for screening that you generally use? Like, of course, you divide it between yourself, maybe one, two people, and then you come back with a third person for an overview. But how do you screen, let's say, these manuscripts? You have 2,000 manuscripts or 500 manuscripts. Do you go through the entire article or the abstract or the result? Like, what are the steps? What do you generally do?
Yeah. So screening is in two stages.
Yeah.
First, you start with always start with the title and an abstract. There are some titles that you know for sure that this is unrelated.
Yeah.
So you don't need to read the abstract, you just kick it out. But you need to be 100% certain that this is unrelated to your research
Exactly.
to kick it out at the title stage. When you are not certain from there, you read the abstract. So those two, they usually go together. They say title and abstract stage screening. So you read the abstract, and then from there now you can decide, is this article about the population of interest, the population I'm interested in? Are they looking at the intervention I am working on? Is the outcome the same? If those questions are yes, then you include. It now goes, all the included articles now go to the next stage, which is the full text screening.
Mm.
Now, in this stage, you have to actually go out now and download the PDFs of those articles and go deeper into the methods to be sure that they are supposed to be included.
Included, yeah.
Yeah. So in the title and abstract stage, you usually you exclude like 50% of the articles or more. And then in the full text stage, you can maybe exclude like 30% more, or even depending on how efficient
Yeah.
you were at the title and abstract stage, it will determine how much you have to kick out again in the full text stage. But one important thing that is important for those two stages is that this has to be done independently. So when you're screening this article, you can't call your friend and say, my friend, how did this article, did you include or exclude? That's already a bias approach to screening. Sorry, this is a mix. So what I'm saying is that if you're screening the titles and abstract, you have to do them independently. You cannot call your friend and say, okay, please, what's your decision on article number 4, for instance? You have to make the decision independently and then come now and see if those decisions are the same or they are very different. Yes. Another thing to note is that if in any of the stages you have a lot of disagreement, conflicts, so this person is saying include, this other person says exclude, you have a lot of those cases, then it might be an indication that you need to do another training of your reviewers to be sure that they understand the inclusion and exclusion criteria for that particular review. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chair, and yeah, for the very brilliant answers. So if you have any questions, I don't see any hands raised up, meaning everyone understood everything. So yeah, we are good to go. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So for those of you who joined late, Mr. Chair is a PhD researcher at the American University of Beirut. So we thank him very much for his time to give us this presentation. At the end of this presentation, I will share the slides to you as PDF so that you have access to it and you can always go back, particularly the references that he provided. Also, we will upload this video on the social media site, that is YouTube, for the Social Epidemiology Lab. You can also go back there to watch it in your free time and to learn more. And yeah, so this webinar, before we end, was brought to you by the Social Epidemiology Lab. So we are an international or non-governmental institution. So we are an NGO and we are involved in research related to social epidemiology. And our goal and mission is to deepen insight into how social factors impact health through research, partnership, and community engagement. And also, that is what we are doing here. We have this interest that social epidemiology is a young field and it's really kind of an interdisciplinary field. That's why we bring researchers from different backgrounds to be able to share their experience with us, like what Mr. Chair is doing with us today. So many more sessions will be coming up in the future, and maybe you will see Mr. Chair again in one of those sessions to share his expertise with us. So in case you need a certificate of attendance for this session, please feel free to send us an email with your full name to the Social Epidemiology Lab email, and then in the weeks ahead, you will receive this email of your certificate. So thank you very much for all of you who attended, and yeah, keep us up to, stay tuned to more sessions that are coming up, and yeah, wish you a very nice evening, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to mention that please connect on social media, LinkedIn also.
Yeah.
I mean, the discussion can go further from there. And
yeah.
Also to give a shout out to Sianga, who is here.
Okay.
It's a long time collaborator, and we have not met.
Yes. I was going to wonder if you couldn't remember me.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember you, bro.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of people I know here. Brenda is here as well. I can't see the entire list, but yeah, apart from Jude, Brenda, and you, there are a lot of people I know here as well.
Yeah,
a lot. My LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is now in the chat. So please connect in case we need to chat about this sometime or something else. I'm very open.
I'll also make a LinkedIn post on this session, and you can feel free to engage and ask Mr. Henry to answer all the questions that he didn't answer here. So thank you everyone, and we stay connected and look forward. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.